Spock disguised himself as best he could, stayed off the main thoroughfares, and found his ancestor at home. "Yes?" the human inquired not unkindly when he'd answered the door. "What can I do you for?" "One question I do have to ask, son," the professor said when he'd made this total stranger comfortable in his home. "You're not running because you've killed someone?" "No, sir, I am not," Spock replied. "Didn't think so. Also, I'll need a name for you. Doesn't have to be your real name, but I can't call you son all the time, can I?" "In fact, you can, grandfather," Spock thought solemnly. He gave a truthful answer. "I am called Spock." "Spock," Professor Grayson said. "Unusual name. There was once a famous pacifist named Benjamin Spock. Do you mind if I call you Ben?" In a terrorist bunker somewhere between Europe and Asia, a grubby hand yanked the translation out of the decoder. "I got something," the terrorist named Agan shouted. "Bulletin out of Kiev. It's about spacemen." "Spacemen?" Easter repeated slowly. He was a thick-headed Irish provo, born 2 generations too late, and it took him a while to grasp things. "What's the use of that, then?" "Hostages," Agan explained. "They have this ship went down in the South Pacific. We could kidnap him, hold him for ransom, maybe even execute him as enemies of the Earth. Bring in their brother spacemen to avenge them. A holy war to end all holy wars." Easter thought about it. Even if there were only 2 spacemen, as Agan's report said, their deaths in a blaze of blood and glory would not only have global, but interstellar implications. It excited him. "Contact the others," Easter said. "We'll do it." Meanwhile, Kirk and his crew were in action. With Parnab's help, they'd broken into one of the central computer record complexes, where Lee Kelso went to work creating false identities, travel permits, whatever they would need to move about freely in this century. "We've got to get to the Vulcans," Kirk instructed his people.
From the window seat of the 3rd-floor bedroom of an old frame house in Boston, contemplating a small rain-swept garden where an oak tree and a ginkgo vied in sprinkling bronze and saffron leaves respectively upon a patch of soggy lawn, I considered a worst-case scenario. No natural phenomenon could have caused me to be here. Therefore, my transport through time and space had been wrought by some manner of intelligence. Without knowing the nature of that intelligence or the reason for its action, my options were limited, my outlook unpromising. Yet, if I must remain here indefinitely, surely there were worse prisons. The professor had respected my privacy, asked no more than the indulgence of a nightly chess game, and questioned me no further. All that remained for me to do was wait. With the professor's permission, I would remain with him for 1 Earth year. If my companions had been transported to Earth by the same power that had brought me here, they should be able to locate me, or I them, within that time. Failing that, I would seek a more permanent place of concealment. Earth had deserts where no human could live, but I was a desert creature, born and bred. I would survive. Whether I had the right to reveal myself to the Vulcans of this century when they arrived in approximately 19 years, I could not say. Even if I were permitted to return to Vulcan with those rescued by the Earthship Amity, what disposition would be made of me on a world where I had not yet been born? Finding no answers, I played chess with Jeremy Grayson and waited.
Jim Kirk wrote until his hand cramped. Captain's log, no stardate. Stardates do not yet exist. If what we are attempting to do fails, they won't exist at all, at least on Earth. My people are all in place, awaiting further orders. Once we find out where the Vulcans are being taken, we can make our move. Assuming aeronav procedures to be not unlike those of the Starfleet in which we serve, The people in charge will be concerned with keeping the Vulcans safe and as far removed from the general public as possible. The only question is, where? Antarctica, Jason Nayeri repeated. It wasn't as if he hadn't heard it. Commodore, you will proceed beneath the pack ice to the old bird research complex, the voice of Aeronav Command said over his comm screen, where you will secure your detainees and await the arrival of several wing boats, bringing official personnel in and most of your crew out. So that was the way of it, Jason thought. Remove my crew so I can't budge my ship until whatever little top-secret charade has been acted out to everyone else's satisfaction. I've got to convince Command that these Vulcans are people, citizens of another world, not objects to be transported wherever Command chooses. And then what happens, Commodore? He demanded. Either I'm told the next move, or by God, I don't play. That will be all, Captain, his superior snapped. Radio us upon your arrival at the complex. Out. Yoshi was less than pleased about leaving his farm. I couldn't leave this close to harvest at the best of times, Jason. Now the kelp wilt's got my north quadrant. I could lose the entire crop. Jason knew that meant not only the livelihood of a single farm, but a threat to the entire food supply of Earth, which had become increasingly dependent upon processed kelp. I've been out since dawn, burning off the worst of it, Yoshi said. But it's taking over. There's no stopping it. Sorrel said he wanted to study the disease. I gave him some samples. He asked if I'd speak to you about using the computer and the chem lab. I'll see he has access to the labs, Jason promised, grateful there was something he could offer the young Vulcan to lighten his imprisonment. Pity he couldn't satisfy everybody. Yoshi, I'm sorry, but you and Tatya will have to come with us. Those are my orders. We'll be underway to Antarctica within the hour. Yoshi just glared at him. Think I've found your ship, Jim. Gary Mitchell reported during his check-in call from Gdansk. She's a Delphinus, classified as a sub-carry cruiser. She can go over or underwater, level a city, set up as a floating laboratory, carry enough cargo to feed a family of 4 for 100 years. Sounds like a waterborne enterprise, Kirk said wistfully, wondering if he would ever see his ship again. Any idea where she's headed? Lee's been tapping in on her radio frequency. You're not going to believe this. Antarctica. Kirk grimaced. I'd better round up Dr. Daner and start moving. Keep your ears on and your nose clean, Mr. Mitchell. And sit tight until you hear from me. 'Tis cold, Easter the terrorist observed in his lugubrious way. Antarctica. Yeah, so? The other inquired in his clipped metallic tones. He was called Rache, the Avenger, a survivalist whose only goal was the destruction of most of humanity, so that there would be more room for him and his kind, whatever his kind was. There was something inhuman, almost robotic about his metal face, metal voice. You are afraid of a little cold? I ain't afraid of nothing, Easter lied. Good, was Rache's opinion. We will meet, then, in Antarctica. Jim Kirk wrote in his personal log, thanks to one of Lee Kelso's false IDs, I have been able to pass myself off as an intelligence agent and wait with other VIPs departing for Antarctica to decide upon what has become known as the Vulcan problem. I have before me the virtually impossible task of seeking out 2 Vulcans, stranded on an ambivalent Earth 20 years before their appointed time, and somehow persuading them to trust me to extricate them from their velvet-lined captivity, lest they fall prey to human fear or permit themselves to be lost in a bureaucratic gulag from which there may be no return. As for what I am to do with human witnesses to this event, the logistics of escape are child's play by comparison. With Jason Nayera at her right hand and her son at her left, Telera of Vulcan faced a united Earth and answered its questions. Among the representatives of the military, intelligence, and several diplomatic and peace organizations was one James T. Kirk, Special Intelligence Agent. Accompanying the medical team sent to examine the Vulcans was Dr. Elizabeth Dana. "Stay with it, Doctor," was all Kirk could tell her when they met in the hall of the once-abandoned Polar Research Center. "Hold on to your files. When the time comes, you'll have to dump every report in the computers. Yours as well as the entire medical team's. There must be no record of these events." "Is that all?" Dana asked, and went to sit in on the interrogations. The questioning was dominated by a 3-star general from Ground Forces Command. "So, you're saying, in essence, that there will be no search parties? No one to come looking for you?" he demanded. "That is correct, General," Tillera said evenly. "Once gone to ground, a craft is considered lost. There will be no attempt at search or rescue." Jim Kirk winced. Did she realize how vulnerable that made her? He asked to be recognized by the chair. "Commander Tillera, if you and your son were free to leave this room, what would you do?" Before Tillera could answer, a disturbance outside the conference hall brought armed sentries rushing in from the cold to escort Captain Nayere and the Vulcans back to Delphinus. Something's happened, Jim Kirk thought. Something outside, up north, in the rest of the world. Something bad. "Gary, Lee, my people are in danger, and I'm trapped here." "It's all over the news media," Jason Nayere roared, more angry than anyone had ever seen him. He'd assembled them all in his cabin. "Everything from little items about damaged spacecraft to stories about monsters with 3 heads, cloning an invasion force. Command tells me there'll be reporters swarming all over this place within a day or 2. How the hell did they find out about the Vulcans? Tatya, tell me that." "I thought if people knew it would help," Tatya blubbered. "It's not my fault. I told my Aunt Maria not to break the story unless something happened to Yoshi or me. Someone else must have overheard and let it leak. I only wanted to help." "Oh, you helped, all right," Melody hissed at her. "You fixed it so the brass will have to prove it's a lie, even if they have to kill your friends here in order to kill the stories." "God damn it to hell, Sawyer!" Jason roared, silencing her. He suddenly felt very weary. "It's done now. Everyone over there in the complex will be evacuated. Their memories wiped with drugs and hypnosis. If the media people get through, there won't be anyone but us to hold them off. And I don't know what happens after that." Spock was assisting Professor Grayson with his morning shave when an item on the vidscreen caught their attention.
"Turn that up a bit, would you, Ben? Your ears are obviously better than mine."
Together they listened to several saner versions of the space aliens story.
"Well, what do you make of that?"
Grayson mused. Spock was thinking that if the stories were true, the presence of other aliens on Earth might be connected with what had brought him here.
"Ben, we can't leave this to the diplomats and the militarists,"
Grayson declared.
"I think I'd better start packing a suitcase."
Most of the personnel at Byrd had been lifted out. Kirk and Dana had insisted on staying. "How much do you know about this century's techniques of memory wiping?" he asked her. "Mandatory reading for any history of med course," Dana replied. "If we could get aboard that ship, could you do it to the humans on board?" Dana thought about it. "Theoretically, given the right drugs." "Good," Kirk said. "Meanwhile, get into the computers and start dumping files. I have to see about getting us aboard that ship." A sudden blizzard waylaid Easter's renegades less than 100 kilometers from their starting point. Worse, one of their ill-equipped snowmobiles had developed a fuel leak. Racher's band, far out on the ice, continued on its deadly way. "You look unwell, Professor," Spock observed, methodically packing sweaters, shirts, and extra handkerchiefs in Grayson's battered suitcase. "Perhaps if I could accompany you."
"Accompany me?"
Grayson wheezed out of breath.
"Lord, Ben, I almost wish you could go in my place."
He'd been trying to untangle a small, odd-looking talisman from its silver chain.
"Doubt if your generation would know what to make of that little object.
Spock disentangled the chain and studied the object. I believe it was commonly called a peace symbol, of obscure but possibly ancient origin, first used extensively during the anti-war movement of the 1960s. Grayson was pleased.
It became our symbol in the underground during the Third War. It's gotten me through many a dangerous situation.
He tried to stand, but suffered a kind of seizure. Spock caught him and broke his fall. "You are ill," he said, alerting the nearest hospital before carrying the old man downstairs to await the ambulance.
Ben,
Grayson gasped.
Benjamin, favored son.
Some time later, a solitary figure left Jeremy Grayson's house, bound for Antarctica. Around his neck, he wore the professor's small silver peace symbol. Perhaps it could help him do the impossible. Jason Nayeri was seriously considering mutiny. "We are committed to a peaceful solution, as I believe you are, Captain," James Kirk was saying, while the lady psychiatrist nodded. "We have a mission to perform here, Captain, and we need your help." "My help or my cooperation, Mr. Kirk?" Jason asked. "I'm still not entirely clear on whom you're working for, and I don't know if I can trust you. But in the past few days, I have sat by and watched two innocent people poked, prodded, put through all manner of foolishness, and treated like they're carrying some sort of disease, all because they're different. And if I had the means to bust out of here and let these people go, Captain," Jim Kirk gestured ingenuously at the great ship surrounding them, "it seems to me you have the means. Suppose I told you we could conceal the Vulcans where no one could find them. Suppose I said we had the means to send them home." Nayeri chuckled. "Now you're creating fantasies. No, I'm sorry. There's nothing I can do until the United Earth Council makes its decision." Yoshi was alone in the mess hall when Soral brought in the computer printout. "What's this?" Soral had been working on the formula ever since they left the Agra station. "I believe it will prove efficacious in the cure of the kelp wilt." Yoshi puzzled over the maze of molecule chains. "It looks complicated." "I assure you, the research is accurate," the young Vulcan said, "to within 99.44%, as measured under laboratory conditions." Yoshi was amazed. A dozen agricultural experts couldn't find this under their noses in 2 years of research. And you've given this to us after all we may yet do to you. Thank you, my friend. Racher's troops waited in the abandoned building of the polar complex. "First thing in the morning," he instructed them, motioning toward the conning tower of the great ship where it thrust up through the ice. "Search and destroy everyone!" Reporters and UFO seekers and assorted hangers-on packed the border towns along the coast of Antarctica. The government was making it almost impossible for anyone to get through. Out of the chaos, a solitary figure emerged. Spock waited all day and half the night in the Pentacrim's temporary headquarters, seeking a travel permit. Finally, he managed to attract a secretary's attention. "I am here on behalf of Professor Jeremy Grayson," he said simply. "We were told to expect Professor Grayson himself," the secretary said, sizing him up. "Do you have any identification?" Spock reached for the fine silver chain around his neck. Yoshi, Soral, and Tatya stood at the wide port of the darkened conning tower, contemplating the expanse of ice and a breathlessness of stars. "I guess you can't see Vulcan from here," Yoshi whispered. "Only from your northern hemisphere, my friend," Soral replied. From the empty building across the ice, a metal-cold figure with infrared eyes picked out the three standing at the window port, easy targets. For a moment, Racher was tempted. Not yet. His breath made no vapor on the deadly cold air. Not yet. Gary Mitchell in a borrowed snowmobile crested the top of a nearby ridge like a motocross racer, shot past the polar complex, and roared straight for Delphinus. "Don't shoot!" Rache shouted over the snowmobile's roar. He must not allow this newcomer to give away his position. Mitchell shut off the snowmobile, took off his goggles, and hailed Jason Nayere, who had come to the top of the conning tower. "Evening! Looking for a fellow named Jim Kirk. Any idea how I can reach him?" "Who wants to know?" Jason demanded. "He'll know me when he sees me, Captain. And there's something you should know about just over the ridge." Rache's troops had left their snowmobiles plainly visible against the ice, not expecting company. It was more of an error than Rache could stomach. He opened fire, and all hell broke loose. Gary Mitchell ducked for cover between the ship and his snowmobile and tried to remember how to pray. Jason had the ship battened down before the echo of the first shot died away, ordered Soral and his two human friends off the bridge, and sounded the red alert. "Find Telera and the doctor and seal yourselves off in the infirmary. Move!" He tossed an automatic at Sawyer as she barreled up the stairs. "Get up there and keep him busy. Kirk, I want to talk to you. You want to explain to me how a guy in a snowmobile slips through the security cordon, asks for you by name, and before I can lower the drawbridge, I find myself fighting World War IV? Gary, Kirk thought. It had to be. No one else would be so reckless. He's a friend, Captain. He's got nothing to do with the attack. I've had weapons training. If you'll give me a chance to get him inside." A ship's captain's greatest skill lay in split-second decision-making in any century. Kirk saw the struggle in Jason's face as he thrust a string of sonic grenades at him. "Auxiliary hatch, round back of the radio room. We'll put the tower between you and whoever's doing the shooting. You've got 3 minutes. I'll lower the gangplank in 2. When you see the tower lights go on, move." Jim Kirk's hands nearly froze to the ladder rungs as he let himself down on the ice. He half ran, half slid toward the prow, his last bit of cover. Melody was throwing grenades from the tower, covering him. Kirk shot out onto the ice, zigzagged the last few yards, and flung himself on top of Mitchell. "Gary, it's me!" he shouted above the racket of automatic fire and the roar of a single flamethrower. He saw the tower light strobe on and sweep across the building facades. He shoved Mitchell toward the gangplank, and they both ran for it. "Pointless!" One of Rache's lieutenants screamed over the roar of the flamethrower. "We can't get inside! Call it off!" "Never!" Rache shrieked back, spitting flame across the distance to ignite Mitchell's snowmobile in a thunderous fireball that rocked the pack ice and the great ship. Melody swapped her automatic for a laser rifle. She picked off 3 of the terrorists before they knew what hit them. The rest ran for the snowmobiles. Only Rache remained. He charged the great ship alone, spitting flame, howling vengeance, until the fuel of his weapon saturated his uniform and caught fire. Rache became a howling column of flame, a beacon in a frozen hell, a charred, lifeless hulk toppling under its own weight, smoking feebly in the snow and stolid starlight. Far out on the ice, Easter's motley band watched several helicopters rush by ahead of a new storm front. They abandoned their leader, who refused to leave his fuelless snowmobile, and fled back the way they'd come. Easter stared stubbornly across the ice, slowly freezing to death. The lead helicopter came in close enough to recognize Jason Nayere, who'd gone out on the ice to reconnoiter after the battle. "Hold your fire, Jason! I'm a friendly," she called. "Got a VIP to unload." "Spock," Jim said in sheer disbelief. "We never expected to see you again." "Indeed, Captain. I might say the same of you." Jason led them all back to the ship. First Mate Melody Sawyer was not on the bridge where she was supposed to be. The message from command had finally come through. Council's decision expected within the hour. Stand by. "Oh, dear God," Jason breathed, seeing the weapons locker open and one of his small hand pistols gone. "Kirk, you and your people stay here." He double-timed down the stairs, where a clanking of bolts meant he was sealing the bridge off from the rest of the ship. They were trapped. Kirk thought fast. "Spock, there must be an override for that hatch." Melody had wasted no time. "Over there," she ordered Telera, bolting the infirmary door behind her, aiming the laser pistol right between those quizzical eyebrows. Junior, you too. Yoshi, Tatcha, don't even breathe. You intend to take our lives? Telera asked calmly. Better me than Jason, Melody said, her jaw set. I quite understand. But the weapon is not needed. Only give us a place where we may be alone. You'd do that? Melody turned to Sorrel. And you'd permit it? It was our intention from the beginning, the young Vulcan said. Suddenly Tatya was between the Vulcan and Melody. Tatya, don't be an idiot, Melody said. I know what I'm doing, the young woman said. If you can kill 2 innocent people, Melody Sawyer, the third can't be all that hard. Exasperated, Melody almost lowered her weapon. Yoshi, do something. Talk some sense into her, can't you? Instead, the young man moved to join the others. I never could talk her into anything. Give it your best shot, Mel. No one will blame you. Well, John Wayne. Melody heard Jason rumble behind her. She'd forgotten about the waiting room door. Looks like you've got the whole shooting match. What are you going to do, blow us all away? The question shook Melody to the core of her being. Suddenly, she had become the enemy. She let the pistol fall to the floor. Jason took her in his arms. Kirk and Mitchell chose that moment to kick in the door. Sorry, Kirk said. We thought there might be a problem. Jason Nayere threw back his head and roared. Humans, Telera thought. The responsibility was no longer theirs, but hers. She would do what she must before they could intervene again. Jason ordered everyone to their quarters while he sorted things out. Kirk's entire crew was crowded into his cabin. I've just come from topside, Jason told them. Our choppers have landed. The storm's letting up. We'll have reporters swarming all over us in a few minutes. And before my final orders come through, I'm going to let them in to talk to Telera and her son. After that, even the Pentagram can't pretend they don't exist. Captain, Jim said, we can't let you do that. You'd better sit down. There are a few things we have to tell you. He took a deep breath and plunged ahead. We are not from your century, but from the future. We know for a certainty that Telera and Sorrel do not belong on Earth at this point in history. That's why we must get them back to Vulcan. Jason absorbed all of this. Nothing could surprise him anymore. If you told Telera that, she'd have to trust you. Wouldn't that solve everything? We cannot do that, Captain, Spock said quietly. All the humans involved in this incident will have their memories wiped. Such techniques are ineffective on Vulcans, and we cannot give Telera certain knowledge of the future. You said you could get them off the planet, Jason began. There's an old missile installation beneath the desert in North Africa, Gary Mitchell chimed in. According to Aeronav records, there are still 3 DY-100 sleeper ships down there. All we have to do is get the Vulcans out of here, Kirk said. Then we can crank up one of those old sleepers and get them home, even if it takes them 10 years to get there. At least they'll be safe. You'll have my help, Kirk, Jason promised. Captain Kirk. Spock, help me, Jim Kirk pleaded. Tell me what to say to Telera. I must know what to do, and I keep seeing blood on the walls if I fail. Captain, Spock hesitated. Logically, I am better able to persuade her to our ends, if I can do so without revealing who and what I am. No, Elizabeth Daner said. Neither of you can do this on your own. There's too much at stake. You're going to have to tell her the truth. It's the only thing that will keep her from taking her own life, and her son's. Professional opinion, Doctor? Kirk demanded. Yes, Captain. Professional opinion. Telera must see the future. A future where human and Vulcan can work together. If you don't show her, history will be altered, and the world as we know it won't exist. You both must show her. You cannot do it alone. Together, Kirk and Spock hurried down the corridor toward Telera's quarters. Spock froze in mid-stride, winced as if in pain. Captain, it has already begun. They crashed through the door. Sorrel lay in trance on the bunk. Telera moved between the intruder and her son. I had forgotten humans locked their doors. Her eyes moved from Kirk to his unidentified and carefully disguised companion. You will leave us. This is no longer any human thing. Your world is not ready for us. By my logic, there is no other way. Commander, Kirk said, feeling his throat tighten around each word. What can I say to persuade you? Do not think to persuade me with words, Mr. Kirk. But if you offer a perspective which outweighs mine... Kirk glanced at Spock, who had reached the same conclusion. Dr. Daner was right. Nothing less than absolute truth would satisfy Telera, and only Spock could show her that truth. The simple act of removing the watch cap that had shielded his identity from humans all this time would show Telera the future of human and Vulcan. It would let her know that the future of both worlds rested in her hands. Slowly, knowing the seriousness of what he did, Spock removed the hat, revealing to Telera who and what he was. Telera's gaze took in this fellow Vulcan and never faltered. In seeing the future and accepting the knowledge Spock offered her, she knew she condemned herself to lifelong exile. No word or thought of what she now knew could ever be revealed to any others of her telepathic species. Nevertheless, Telera saw the lifelong sacrifice that lay before her and accepted the challenge. Refused entry to the ship, the reporters had set up loudspeakers outside in the snow.
Captain Nayere, we demand to see the aliens. We demand...
Mitchell was helping Jason ready the ship for departure. Hey, Captain, he yelled above the noise. How soon before we can put some distance between us and them? Right now, Kirk announced, striding onto the bridge. A man couldn't ask for a better crew, Jason Nayere thought, watching these newcomers run his ship. His helmsman, a starship captain in another life, sat beside one of several available navigators, and this newest Vulcan had his ears on, so to speak, at communications. They were going under the ice. The comm screen crackled ominously. The bland face of Aeronav Command appeared on Jason's screen. Prepare to receive your final orders, per disposition of your detainees, Captain. Command, stand by, please. Unseen, Nayere motioned to Spock, who began manipulating dials, creating interference. Sorry, Command. Unable to reach you. Your message is breaking up. Repeat. At the downsweep of Jason's hand, Spock severed the connection completely. Bridge to engine room. Jason called down to Yoshi, Sorrel, and Tatya, nodded to Kirk and Mitchell. Open her up. Once past the ice and the 3-mile limit, they made top speed toward the Ivory Coast. Mitchell had arranged for Parnib to meet them there. The farewells were necessarily brief. Jason kissed Telera's hand solemnly. I'm going to miss you, lady. An hour from now, you would never remember meeting her. Live long and prosper, Jason Nayere, Telera replied. I will hold you in my thoughts. Only she would know for how long. The conning tower breached the surface several kilometers offshore. Jim Kirk piloted the small skiff that brought his people ashore. I read some kind of vehicle up the beach a ways, Mitchell reported. Parnib, Kirk said. We're almost in the clear. Dr. Daner was the last to leave the ship. She had seen to the re-education of those left behind. The sorcerer Parnib had brought an overland vehicle large enough to accommodate them all, Egyptian garb to disguise the Vulcans, and a small surprise. Lee! Jim Kirk cleared his throat. Mr. Kelso, where the devil? Kelso shrugged. I got sidetracked for a bit. Difference of opinion with the authorities about borrowing computer time, but here I am. They climbed into the Overlander for the long drive across the western desert, where there were indeed 2 sleeper ships suspended in horizontal berths in an underground cavern. Beside them, an empty gantry had evidently once held a third. Burn marks on the floor, Kirk observed. They can be launched from here. Let's see how much we can boost these old nuclear engines. Planetary defense systems will be directed outward in search of incoming hostile vessels, Spock explained to Telera. They will not anticipate a vessel containing aliens headed away from Earth. And that's the best we can do, Commander, Kirk said. I only wish we could give you warp drive. It is more than sufficient, Captain, Telera assured him. The desert sky was cloudless and abrim with stars. One of this glittering host, a red sun whose harsh, demanding planet was birthplace to 14 billion disciplined, logical beings, beckoned two of its members home. Inside the clumsy Earthship, Telera of Vulcan touched the controls, triangulated off that glinty ruby in the sky, and the lumbering DY-100 lifted off. As the ship slipstreamed past Jupiter, Sorrel listened to Earth's radio broadcasts. Pentagram spokespersons, in a joint statement with United Earth Council, confirmed the fact that maneuvers in the South Pacific and Antarctica were, in fact, only a test of Earth's readiness to cope with a potential alien invasion. We repeat, there are not now, and there never have been, beings from another planet on Earth. Barnab's Overlander pulled up in front of his house on the hill in the hour before dawn. Everyone but Spock went indoors. Beneath the starless pre-dawn sky, he reached inside his Egyptian robe and removed the peace symbol from his neck. Loosening some stones at the base of the hill, he buried Jeremy Grayson's magic talisman in earth. He could not know that half a world away, the ancient pacifist had died quietly in his sleep. "You're sure this will work?" Kirk asked Parnib uneasily as his landing party gathered in the ancient cellar for the trip home. "You have worked your magic, Captain," the sorcerer said. "Now it is my turn." Clasping his magic crystal in both hands, he concentrated all his will on bringing them all back to a place of swirling blue dust where two figures, one standing watch, the other fallen in undignified sprawl in the sand. "Captain," Spock helped Jim Kirk to his feet. "What happened?" Kirk dusted his trousers, looked around. "You lost consciousness, Captain. I took the liberty of beaming the rest of the landing party aboard. Mr. Mitchell and Mr. Kelso reported some difficulty in breathing." "You did the right thing," Kirk said vaguely. Mitchell and Kelso. Were they the entire landing party? He couldn't remember. "We'll continue our research aboard the Enterprise. Let's get out of here." Spock terminated the mind meld, emerged into the realm of light. Kirk sat with his face buried in his hands. "Are you all right, Jim?" Kirk passed one hand over his eyes, smiled vaguely. "Are you?" McCoy was asleep, snoring prodigiously. No matter. The doctor's tricorder contained proof of all that had transpired. Jim Kirk's sanity was no longer in question. Spock carried McCoy into the bedroom, where he could snore to his heart's content. Kirk stirred the fire, poured himself a brandy. Suppose the United Earth Council had decided to welcome the Vulcans, he wondered. "Spock, did we save the Federation, or set it back 20 years? Spock picked up Kirk's copy of Strangers from the Sky. If we had not been present, Telera would have taken her life and Sorrel's. The representatives of the news media would have discovered 2 dead aliens, and our nightmare would have been realized. And there were other, subtler forces at work as well. He handed Jim Kirk the book. The Admiral read how Earth soon forgot the alien incident and went on with its business. Of how a group called Welcome, under Tatya's leadership, began educating humans about the possibility of life on other worlds. Of how Yoshi patented Sorrel's cure for kelp wilt and saved Earth and its colonies from food shortages. Of how the deaths of Racha and Easter signaled the death of terrorism in the 21st century. He read, too, that Melody Sawyer earned her own command, and went down with her ship after rescuing all hands from a fire. He read of Jason Nayere's death from a fever the year before the Vulcans came again. Finally, he read of Soral's return to Vulcan and the off-world service, of how he lived to 247 years of age and never spoke of Earth again, and of Telera's address to the Vulcan Council, in which she said of her encounter with Earthmen only that it is not a lie to keep the truth to oneself. He read, too, of her subsequent disappearance from history and perhaps from life itself. Those of us born into a federation 500 planets strong, Jim Kirk read, may forget how tenuous were its beginnings. None of us can deny that Vulcans have, in some way, affected all our lives.
Now that we had found the answer to our mystery, Admiral Kirk and I were free to return to our normal lives. Curiosity drew me inexorably to the crowded streets of Parneb's Egyptian city, toward a place where I had walked before. I found the hill more by direction than recognition. The entire area surrounding it was now a warren of high-rises, and Parneb's house was long gone. Perhaps someday the hill itself would be leveled in the name of progress, unearthing all its secrets. For now, however, it endured. I did not expect to find that which I had left in this place in a time before I was born. My coming here was motivated more by nostalgia than by logic. I had come to pay homage to my ancestor. Jeremy Grayson's body had long since gone to dust. His katra lived on in the people of a world who had at last learned the lesson of his small peace symbol, and perhaps in the green blood of his somewhat unanticipated offspring. If the symbol itself was lost on Earth, that was as it should be. I stood at the foot of the hill, so lost in thought that I did not see the child until he tugged at the sleeve of my uniform. "Your pardon, Sir Vulcan," he asked. His voice was lyrical and bore the accent of the region. "I believe you have misplaced this." He had apparently retrieved the fine silver chain from the dust at our feet and offered it to me now. Why did he seem so familiar to me? Perhaps if he had been several decades older, wearing a long white robe and clutching a crystal ball, I might have been more certain of who he was. I attempted to return the object to him. "Surely this is yours." The boy smiled and shook his head. "But you see, I already have one," he said, showing me a fragment of milky, uncut crystal on a chain about his thin neck. "That one belongs to you." He scurried away, vanishing in the crowd. I could not have found him again had I tried. Had it indeed been Parneb? I would never know. I considered the dusty, glinting object which had been returned to me. Fascinating, I thought, and strangely appropriate. After all that had happened to human and Vulcan in the search for peace, that it should be a Vulcan's hands, touched with the soil of his ancestral Earth, that ultimately held this symbol of peace.